Nothing? Hey guys, it's another show of Ski Boot Answers. As you can see, I'm having kind of a rough week. I forgot to do the dishes, the wife got angry. Just kidding, I decided to crash my mountain bike and test out the durability of my face. Turns out I don't bounce too well. Anyway, I'm not going to let that stop me. You've got ski boot questions and I'm here to answer them. But I think in this episode, I'll give you the option. I might pixelate my face so you don't have to look at this monstrosity, and you can get rid of that if you actually don't care. Okay, let's begin the show. Now the first question comes from Super M Demon on YouTube. I have heel lift in every boot I try. I have Atomic Hawks with heel lift. Do any manufacturers address this problem? So the reason you'll be experiencing heel lift is either because there is too much space laterally in the back of the boot, which doesn't secure the heel, allowing it to come up, or you have too much space above the foot, which isn't securing you at the instep. So that space then has somewhere for that heel to lift up into. So to tackle this in your current boots, you'll either need some ankle locks or a volume reducer or a combination of both. And the other way to approach this is actually get you into a narrower lasted boot which has a lower volume and is going to secure your heel better. Now if this narrower lasted boot doesn't match the width of your forefoot, you're going to need to either get that stretch to suit, or you're going to need to find a boot that is moldable. And another option you could look into as well would be an aftermarket liner which can fill in these voids and secure your heel. Okay, and the next question comes from Jerry Nitzberg by email. Dear Craig, my long toes, first and second, are jamming into the front of my boots. This is when I get off balance to the rear, not when skiing with good technique or walking. My feet are 26 centimeters long and 95 millimeters wide. I have slight pronation. I have been fit into a Rossignol World Cup 90 in a size 25.5. Okay, so what happens when you start skiing backseat is your foot gets slammed forward by being leveraged off the back of this boot. Well, you can imagine what happens is when your weight goes back, your leg then acts as a lever point off here and forces all that pressure forwards. So this is where there is a direct correlation with skiing form and how the ski boot feels. Now by the sounds of your situation, Jerry, you have been fit into a race style boot, and I can't imagine that you would have much space lengthwise as far as a shelf fit perspective. So the first thing I would check is just make sure that that current footbed you have is giving you enough support through the arch. Having it a bit fuller and stronger to prevent any elongation of your toes to the front. And the other thing I think could be really beneficial for you is look into gaining some extra space with a toe box stretch. Now it does sound like the rest of the boot does secure your foot really well, so gaining a little bit extra space in the toes isn't going to hinder how this boot performs. Okay, and the third question of the day comes from Ken Ball, and he got in touch by email. Heel wedges, how do you construct them and what impact do they have? I have the Mountain Lab boot and the heel pockets feel a tad loose. Would wedges help to fit the heel pocket, and what impact would they have on forward lean and ramp angle? Thanks, Ken. Well, firstly, why would you want to make them? I have heel wedges for days. Now a heel wedge will lift you up higher in the heel pocket and give you a closer grab. But the main purpose of a heel wedge is to increase ramp angle. Now this helps someone with a low ankle range of motion get to a better stance and feel balanced. Now by adding ramp angle, a heel wedge will get you about another 2 degrees and is designed to then keep you forward and centered. Now a heel wedge is something you can experiment with. You will notice pretty quickly if it is throwing off your balance. Now the other ways we can get you some more security in the back, Ken, is either with a footbed or with some ankle locks. Now that Mountain Lab boot is a touring specific boot, so I think the first thing you should look at doing is footbed, and I'm sure that'll make a big difference for you. Okay, and the last question of the day comes from Ski for Sam on Instagram. Thanks, man. From an independent perspective, what is the difference between a 2-piece and a 3-piece boot? So I did start to cover this a little bit in the Flex video, but let's take a bit of a closer look and see some other differences. Okay, so 2 completely different constructions of boot, and there is pros and cons of both. But let's start by taking a look at the 3-piece boot. Now the reason they have become so popular in the free ski and freestyle aspects of the sport is not just marketing. When you look at the design, it actually matches this type of skiing really well. Now when you think about the forces and demands of this type of skiing, it starts to make a bit more sense. Then we have heavy forward impacts from landings, we have slash turns, and we have switch skiing. So this all correlates well with a boot that has a stiffer back cuff, a front tongue that absorbs and flexes really well, and a boot that has an aggressive stance of forward lean and ramp angle. And then we have the race and carve aspects of the sport. And this is where an overlap design is going to be a little bit better at achieving a closeness of fit, but also at transferring lateral energy down through to your skis. When we look at the cuff and the overlap of the lower shell, you can just see that this style of boot allows for so much more closure to snug this boot up further. There are many more options in overlap design boots on the market, so you have many more choices in finding a suitable last for your foot. And then we can talk lateral flex of the boots, and this is where an overlap design is going to be stiffer from the sides. So as we tip the boot over, this is going to give you a quicker response to your skis and faster exit out of your turns. Now these are just main points in difference in construction and subtleties of how they respond. This is in no way a black and white difference. There is most definitely overlap, and each style of boot can have success no matter what style of skiing you're doing. Also, there is now quite a lot of hybrids that are using both styles in their construction. Alright, and that is today's show. I hope it's been somewhat enjoyable and enlightening, and again, sorry for the face. Make sure you submit your questions. Cheers.